The park was quiet that morning, wrapped in the gentle hum of awakening city life. Dew clung to the blades of grass, glistening in the soft touch of sunrise. Birds sang from the trees, their melodies mingling with the faint rustle of leaves stirred by a lazy breeze. On a worn wooden bench beneath an old oak tree, something small but deliberate rested, a folded letter, neatly placed, its edges trembling slightly in the wind. It might have gone unnoticed if it weren't for Sarah, who walked through that park every morning on her way to the bus stop. She was 27, always punctual, always tucked behind her earphones and her own quiet world. She liked the park because it gave her a brief moment of calm before the rush of the city swallowed her. But that morning, the letter caught her eye, cream-colored, with her name written across it in careful, looping handwriting. Her heart skipped. For a second, she thought it must be a coincidence. There were plenty of Sarahs, after all. Still, something about the handwriting felt familiar, though she couldn't quite place it. She looked around, the park was empty. Hesitating, she sat down and picked up the envelope. It wasn't sealed, just folded over gently. Inside was a single sheet of paper. She unfolded it and began to read. Dear Sarah. If you're reading this, it means you came by the bench, just as I hoped you would. I don't know where to start, so I'll start with thank you. You didn't know it, but you changed someone's life right here, on this very bench. Sarah frowned slightly, curiosity replacing confusion. She continued reading. 2 years ago, a man sat here, broken in ways he didn't know how to fix. He thought he'd reached the end. He'd lost his job, his family had drifted away, and he couldn't see any reason to keep going. That man was me. I didn't plan to see another sunrise after that day. But then you sat beside me. Her hands trembled slightly. You were crying too, the letter went on. But you still smiled when I said hello. You offered me half your sandwich, and though we didn't talk much, you told me something I've never forgotten. Sometimes, all we can do is share the bench we're sitting on and hope it's enough. You probably forgot you said that. But for me, it was everything. I decided that day not to give up. You didn't even ask for my name, maybe that was what made it feel so honest, so real. Just two strangers sharing a hard day and a quiet moment. Sarah's eyes blurred. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. She remembered that day. She'd lost her mother a week earlier. She'd sat on the same bench with her sandwich and her grief, too lost in her own pain to realize she had helped someone else. Thank you, Sarah. The man on the bench. Sarah sat frozen, the letter trembling in her hands. She felt the wind brush against her hair, carrying with it the faint scent of spring flowers. Around her, the world went on, joggers passed by, a child chased a red balloon, the hum of life filling the park, but for her, time seemed to stand still. She reread the letter slowly, every word sinking deep. A warmth spread through her chest, not joy, not exactly, but something gentler. Healing, maybe. She had been walking through her life lately in a kind of gray haze, going to work, coming home, scrolling through other people's happiness. It had been years since her mother passed, but grief had lingered quietly, like a shadow that refused to move. And now, here was this, a letter from a stranger she had once unknowingly saved. She folded it carefully and slipped it into her bag, her mind swirling with thoughts. Who was he? What did he look like now? Did she even remember his face? Only vaguely, tired eyes, a rumpled coat, a man sitting with his hands clasped, staring at the ground. She remembered feeling that he looked as lost as she felt. Maybe that was why she had shared her sandwich in a few words, because in that moment, kindness was all either of them had. As the bus roared up the street, she made a sudden decision. Instead of boarding, she turned around and walked toward the community center. It wasn't far, a small brick building near the park's edge. The sign outside read, Maple Street Community Center, Helping Hands, Healing Hearts. Inside, the walls were covered with colorful posters and children's drawings. Volunteers were sorting donated clothes. Sarah stood at the reception desk, unsure what to say. A woman with kind eyes looked up. Hi there, she said. Can I help you? I'm looking for someone, Sarah said, her voice quiet. I don't know his name. But, he works here. He left a letter for me on a park bench. The woman's eyes softened with understanding. Ah, she said, smiling knowingly. You must be Sarah. Sarah blinked. You know about it. He told us he wanted to thank someone special. Said if a woman named Sarah ever came by, to tell her he'd be back soon. He's out delivering supplies right now. Sarah nodded slowly, feeling her heart twist. Could I wait for him? Of course, the woman said warmly. You can sit over there. Would you like some tea? Sarah smiled faintly. That would be lovely. She sat in the corner, hands wrapped around a steaming cup, watching as volunteers moved with quiet purpose. There was laughter here, gentle, genuine, the kind that felt like sunlight through open windows. And she wondered if maybe this was the light he had found after all. Half an hour later, the door opened, and a man stepped in carrying boxes. His hair was flecked with gray now, his posture a little stooped from the weight of the load, but when he looked up, there was life in his eyes. Daniel, the woman at the desk called. You have a visitor. He turned, and froze. The boxes nearly slipped from his hands. Sarah, he said softly, disbelief coloring his voice. She stood, smiling through the tears already forming. So, your name's Daniel. He set the boxes down slowly, his hands trembling. You got the letter. I did, she whispered. I almost didn't stop this morning. I almost walked right past it. I hoped you wouldn't, he said, voice thick with emotion. I wasn't sure you'd even remember me. I remembered, she said. Not your name or your face maybe, but the feeling. That day. I was broken too. He nodded, his eyes glistening. Maybe that's why your kindness meant so much. You didn't give it because you had everything. You gave it because you understood. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, two people who had once crossed paths in the quiet ache of their lives, now reunited in the gentle circle of gratitude. Daniel smiled finally, the kind of smile that came from somewhere deep and steady. Would you like to see what we do here? I'd love to, Sarah said. He led her through the center, rooms filled with laughter, with people finding new beginnings. He introduced her to volunteers, to families receiving help, to children painting bright pictures on canvas. Every wall seemed to echo with hope. As they walked, Daniel shared his story, how he'd hit rock bottom, how that single act of kindness had been a spark in his darkest moment, how he'd found purpose helping others rediscover theirs. I thought, he said, that life had ended for me. But that day, on the bench, I realized it hadn't. Someone still saw me. Someone still cared. And that meant maybe I could learn to care again too. Sarah listened, feeling tears threaten again. You turned your pain into something beautiful, she said softly. He smiled. We both did, in our own ways. They ended up back at the entrance, standing by the door where sunlight spilled in. I still come by that bench sometimes, Daniel said. To remember where it all began. You know, I've seen others leave letters there now too, little notes of encouragement, stories, thank yous. It's become something of a tradition. Sarah's lips curved in a small smile. Maybe kindness has a way of multiplying. Maybe it does, he said. One letter, one bench, one shared sandwich at a time. When Sarah finally left the center that afternoon, she felt lighter than she had in years. She stopped by the bench once more, the sun now high overhead, the park alive with laughter and chatter. The wooden seat looked the same, old, weathered, but to her, it held a quiet sacredness. She pulled out her notebook, tore a page, and began to write. To whoever finds this, she wrote, I don't know what brought you here today, maybe sadness, maybe hope, maybe nothing at all. But if you're sitting here, I want you to know that you matter. Even when you think no one sees you, kindness finds its way back. It always does. Be gentle with yourself. The world still has room for your light. She folded the note, placed it on the bench, and smiled. As she walked away, a breeze lifted the edge of the paper, as if the park itself was whispering its approval. And somewhere, not too far away, another stranger would one day sit down, find that letter, and read words that might change their life, just as a single smile, a shared sandwich, and a forgotten bench had once changed hers. Kindness, after all, doesn't disappear. It lingers, in letters, in memories, in quiet acts that ripple across time, reminding us that even the smallest gestures can echo endlessly, finding their way back to the hearts that first sent them out into the world.